Welcome to a Lessons Learned session presented by Predictive Solutions. This session will address the collection of safe observations. We will discuss the value of safe observations. We will relate them to the Safety Net Summary Report. We will then discuss how safe observations can be used to drive continuous improvement. First of all, unsafe observations you collect as you see them. Typically, you're going to find many more safe observations in relation to the number of unsafe observations collected. So some people say, do I have to go out and look at everything all the time? No, of course you can't do that. So what you should do is representative sampling. So before construction sites are allowed to dig into the dirt, they have to do soil sampling in some places to make sure it's not contaminated. Now they don't send out all the dirt to be sampled. They do soil sampling. They do boring samples in different locations, and those boring samples represent the whole. The same should be done for your safe observations. You don't have to count everything. What you should do is go out, take some representative sampling. If everything looks good, then you shouldn't have to do much more observations. If you go out and the majority of the things you're seeing are not safe, then you're going to want to keep doing it so that you get a good representation of what's really going on. The next thing is estimating. Don't do it. For example, if you have 500 people on a job site and you go through an entire day and don't see anybody not wearing their hard hat, so everybody you saw wore a hard hat, you can't go and say 500 safe observations. Only document what's observed. So if you actually physically saw 500 people, you can put 500 observations. If you only physically saw 50, you can only put 50 observations. Next, collection of safe observations allow you to give positive reinforcement. Coaching is done to improve. It's saying, hey, you guys are doing really good in these areas. There's only a few things that we need to work on, but we can make those, turn those at risk to safes. You can recognize and reward groups or individuals or locations that are doing really well, and not just finding the at-risk over and over and over again and never finding the good things that are being done. Remember, if your only tool is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. So let's talk about if we were to collect unsafe observations only. I want to compare two contractors or two crews or two groups. Contractor 1 has 5 unsafe observations in electrical over the last week. Contractor 2 has 0 unsafe observations in electrical. So let's go ahead and assume they're the same size contractors doing similar work. Okay? So which one is safer? So our inclination is to say, well, the guy with 0 is safer. He has 0 unsafes. But there is a huge assumption that we make when we do that. And we do it. If you're not collecting safe observations, you are doing it. It's assuming that I went out and observed contractor 2 working and then evaluated that the work that they were doing is in fact safe, not unsafe. By not documenting safe observations, you cannot make that assumption. So, did you look at the issue? OSHA has a saying, if it's not documented, it was not done. Safe observations allow you to say at that date and that time, I made an evaluation and it was safe. You can then give feedback to observers based on what they are or are not looking at, because they will evaluate safe and unsafe based on the hazard or behavior observed, based on the group or contractor department, based on the projects and locations. Because otherwise you're going to get an incomplete picture of what your people are really looking at. So I'm running a summary report in Safety Net. This summary report was specifically only looking at one category, and that is welding and cutting over a given period of time. So we went out and we looked at it during 56 different inspections. 441 observations were gathered. But let's look at it just from the unsafe or at-risk conditions. I found 24, but you can see there are some that have 0 If I was only collecting unsafe observations, would I know that people were looking at flash arrests on torches? Would I know that people looked at welding machines being ventilated? Would I know that they were looking at hot work permits? Right? I would never know these things without gathering the safe observations. In addition, it shows a quick ratio of what my people are looking at the most and the least. In this case, they're looking at PPE a lot more than anything else, right? And they haven't even looked at oxygen and acetylene separated. If these things that are not observed often are important to you, you can then give feedback to your observers to go out and look at it. Another example is things that are clearly jump out at you when you find them unsafe. For example, if you're doing hot work and people have a live hot torch going, you're going to look for a fire extinguisher whether or not it's there. But if you're just walking around the facility, how many times do you stop and look to go, hey, there's a fire extinguisher there, and document the safe? So safe observations are a cornerstone to get a complete picture of what is really going on at a location with a contractor, or what is the priority for your observer. Without that, you can't give feedback. Without that, you're going to get an incomplete set of data, which is going to inhibit your ability to predict and prevent future.